Hello and welcome back to Moving Mountains. Sheila, it's been a while, hasn't
I
it?
know. My goodness, it's been a long time.
But
As
there's
I was
been,
telling Jay, I had to take a break.
right? But there's been some great things happening. So
Yes.
now the discussion we're about to finish off a discussion that started off on chd.tv. So you might want to check out What's Your View on chd.tv for the rest of this discussion. But we were talking about the inspired healing journey, and we're here with Jamard Banks from herbalchemistry.com. Welcome, welcome. Jamard is brilliant. He's got all of
Yes,
this
he is.
information on herbs and how they work with the body and how they synchronize in nature and how we synchronize with nature. My mind is like I'm gonna call you, like we're gonna call you,
Yes,
and
we
I
are
really
going to
hope,
call you.
right. So what we were talking about though, like where did we leave off on the other discussion, because we were talking about
We were talking about how it all works synergistically together because I think when people go in to see a doctor, they want that one doctor to fix their situation. If they go
right,
see a cardiologist or they go see an oncologist, once they're finished with the surgeon, if they get the cancer cut out or what have you, they're looking to the oncologist to do all of the different types of medications that they do and fix it. And they expect to walk away completely healed. But there are other components that go with that. And we were having a conversation about how the whole body must work synergistically together. It's a holistic process. It's not that you can keep your mind and your brain over here with all of the stress that you've dealt with. Keep your body under complete turmoil right here and eat all of the things that doesn't go along with your chemistry and expect for even an herb to heal what's wrong with you.
right.
It doesn't work that way. And
Well,
that's
you
the
said
concept of
something earlier, Jamar. You talked about people using herbs the same way we use allopathic medicine. So when you have high blood pressure, you go get some herbs and you take it to get rid of the symptoms, but you're not really getting to the bottom of why your blood pressure is high.
Right, right. So again, Dr. Sheila said it's about looking at the whole picture because nine
Hmm.
times out of 10, any dis-ease is an expression of what's going on throughout the body. So something's happening for a reason, and we want to understand why. Because the body's doing things. It's like just like a car. If your car starts to overheat, is it because the thermostat is going? Is it the fan belt is going? Or do you just want to cool off the car and then keep going? So sadly, we get it stuck in this like instant gratification microwave effect that Western medicine has taught us. And even worse off is that we're starting to have naturopaths and herbalists. And, there's been some, I guess, collecting of different agencies to kind of get a grip on certain naturopathic practitioners. I know there's a different system that United States and Canada is using. I'm using the traditional old-fashioned system that doesn't get much credit. We're mainly self-taught, but when you're passionate, you're going to learn anything and everything about it, and you'll be
That's true.
surprised. The same person who went to school for 20 years is looking at you like, how do you know that?
Right.
So, understanding getting to that root cause and wanting to know why your body's expressing itself in that manner is the real importance. And the emotional component plays a part, the mental component, the spiritual component, all those things play a key factor in the expression that this body is having because it's simply expressing itself. Your body's a map. It's not doing things on its own. It's doing these things technically to save us, to help us. But if there's a toxin coming into the body, your body will take that toxin and store it someplace if it has to. And it will make a cell to consume it if it has to. If there's an overheating type effect going on, your body will respond by either increasing your blood pressure. If there's clients with ED and, the first thing I tell them is let's take care of your heart. And they're confused. They're like, what do you mean take care of my heart? I told you my problem's down here. And coming from an understanding of what's going on there, it's not understanding that testosterone is first in your heart, then it's in the brain. before it goes anywhere south of the border. So addressing the
Really?
heart is the key to addressing any type of ED issues or hormone imbalances, because your heart is where your memories are stored. You know, how you feel and your energy and your emotions is stored there. You know, sometimes we suffer from our hearts breaking. You know, no matter what we're doing, you know, it breaks, and then we got to go back in, we got to fix it. So, you know, all these components are part of a whole picture, and every human being has their own journey, their own experience, their own little fine-tuned details that I love going through and trying to figure out, you know, what works best for this person.
It's so refreshing to hear that, Jake, because in this journey, people need something that's personalized and they need to feel validated in how they feel. I can't begin to tell you how many times I've heard people go into a physician's office and they have these symptoms and they're told, maybe it's in your head. Those symptoms, because they're not manifesting themselves clinically with your body, or they've been dismissed because they thought this would be good for me. Maybe if I try this. So I want to talk to my doctor about changing my eating plan, possibly going vegan and cutting out fruits that may not be so healthy for me. And they'll tell you, we've got a nutritionist here. You don't really have to cut out anything. But instinctively, your mind is telling you, this is what I feel like I need to do. Or being blamed for your own health condition because no one has actually told you how you got to where you are, because the body has been under so much stress and attack from not only your brain, your thoughts, your gut, but every component of your being. So it's refreshing to hear someone say, listen, let's sit down and look at every part of who you are, and let's comprise a plan that is unique to the individual that you are. Because that's our health is as unique as our footprint or
Yes,
our
Right.
thumbprint, and it needs
Right.
to be validated.
Right. Right.
absolutely, absolutely.
I know
Yeah,
what always drove me crazy, where if you're sick, you have to go to a doctor for your feet, a doctor for your heart. Then you got to go to one for cancer, and you got to go, then you have your primary doctor, then you have, it never actually made sense to me. Your model makes a whole lot more sense because it feels holistic, right? You're not separating my feet from my hands, from my head, from the rest of my body. But what you're saying is that I'm a multi-dimensional being. I have emotions, right? And I have to deal with those. And you talk about how those impact the body. Like when you talk about hormones starting with the heart,
Right.
I'm like, whoa. I want the audience to know too that you're knowledgeable about allopathic medicines because that's the first work you did, right? So
yes,
you're not talking from a place of ignorance about those.
And you're
no,
speaking
no,
about how the meridians are all connected,
Right,
which
yes,
means that we're connected from here to the soles of our feet. We can't separate one component from the other and
right,
expect to achieve the healing that we want to achieve.
right.
that's correct. Yep. As a matter of fact, the when we spoke about iridology follows those same meridian lines, which is what makes it such an amazing science, and it's so accurate. It follows those meridian lines all the way down to the feet, which equates to reflexology. And those meridian lines in between is what an acupuncturist or acupressurist utilizes to affect different portions of the body. And the whole body is, again, as a whole, is telling that story. But there's so many different pieces to the puzzle. And in traditional Western medicine, we're looking at, you know, if something shows up with your thyroid, they go after your thyroid. I couldn't tell you
Mhm.
how many people will get a benefit from addressing their liver first, because the liver controls 20% of the endocrine system. So before you even look at your pancreas and take medication for diabetes, before you look at all these different things, your liver is controlling it, and it will put pressure on those organ systems. And then your colon plays a huge factor in that as well, because when you look at an image of the colon, just looking at it, how it fits anatomically, it's touching all these other organ systems. Okay. I've had clients who have had issues with asthma, and come to find out it's interconnected with a bacterial translocation of Canada's albicans escaping through the pleural cavities and then just causing some problems there. And you'll have rheumatoid arthritis interconnected with bacterially translocated candida. So all these different imbalances are usually connected to secondary or tertiary issues that we never want to even get to or never get a chance to take a peek at until someone sees you and actually has to listen. Because when you tell me, yeah, I drool when I sleep, I grind my teeth at night, I wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes my ears itch and I get a ringing in my right ear, and I have an unailing craving for cookies, sweets, cakes, candy, pasta, rice, bread, and starch at night, every night. When you start adding all these things together, you start realizing, aha, there's a bacterial imbalance, because we are essentially nothing but a big bowl of bacteria. You can't even process B12 without bacteria. Bacteria, you mentioned before, bacteria needs B12, cobalt, and a bunch of other things in order for it to function. And living in a society where we drink cow's milk, and I call it coagulated pus, when we're taking these things into the body, you're coating your intrinsic factor. You can't process B12. So everyone's looking for more energy, thinking their energy is low. And the reality is it's just a bad processing system. And we're not addressing all the little gears and tiny little details that we should, address, because this is our body. We care about all the details. We care about our nails, our hair, our
Right.
skin. We want to make sure all these components are doing what they're supposed to do.
I know what you're saying is true, because I remember the first integrated physician I saw, and she's no longer with us. She ended up getting diagnosed with cancer after I did, just months later, and she died within that year because she combined her integrative process with Western medicine, and she just didn't make it. But the first question she asked me, she said, "Do you have root canals?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I got them probably about 30 years ago." She said, "Do you know where they are?" I said, "I think they're on each side." She said, "You need to go to a biologic dentist and find out." So I go to the biologic dentist, and amazingly, both of those root canals were here on the right side, the upper quadrant, a direct line to the breast cancer. It was amazing to find that out. And so I started seeing this herbalist. He retired. When I started seeing him 3 years ago, he was 97 years old. He had been an engineer, and like you, he had done some pharmacy work all those years ago, and he got into herbal medicine. So when I went to see him, he has a son who does all of the engineered data for one of the largest cancer facilities in the country, the one that I had gone to. And he told me, he asked me the same question as she did. I told him, yes, I'm going to have it taken out. And because it's a process to doing it if you go to a biologic dentist. So he said, my son has looked at the data from this hospital of all of the women who've come in, and 97% of them have root canals on the same side as the breast cancer. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go to the blaming of women just on an emotional basis, because you get a lot of blaming emotionally for what's happening with your body and what have you, and you start to understand it's not just the emotional component, it's all of you, the whole, just everything that's involved. And we have a whole system where we're so dependent on the Western type of medicine, we're not even educating ourselves or our children for that matter, that there was something before that. And this is how we should be living. It's a holistic approach. And you're just not going to get that from Western medicine. You're not going to get that from a Western dentist. There's more to this issue of this living energetic body that must be addressed. And you brought that point up within the last hour, Jay, which I think is so important. Another issue you brought up was, I'm just giving it the name that I give it, earthing. When you say we connect back to the nature, you're going out there hugging trees. I remember as a girl, and still as an adult, I like walking bare feet. I don't, even in the winter, but I've gotten so used to being told to put shoes on. I used to go connect with the grass all the time. I would go lay out in the sun. I've just gotten back to earthing myself and making sure that, because my grass is pure, I don't have anything on it, that I'm out there and I've got my feet into that grass, and it brings back, as you said, the childlike part of me that I thought I needed to mature and grow out of. It's just a psychological process we put ourselves through, thinking that we were once here and now we should be here and just stay here and ride it out the rest of our lives. And no, that's not the way we were meant to behave and perform in this existence in our lives.
Right.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know what I realized from having kids? That children like yoga, you'll see babies doing yoga
Yeah.
Mhm.
every day. That's how they build their muscle tone and learn to walk and all of that. They're doing all of these things that as adults we have to rediscover.
Right. And yoga kind of twists and contorts the body. It's like wringing out your wash rag. You can hang your wash rag up and, it'll eventually dry, but it might get a little moldy. So the same thing happens inside our body, especially inside the trunk, where all the blood rich area is. That's, your pelvic area, the gut, that area there. And I learned this in combat for, learning Sanuka Jiu-Jitsu. They would tell us the place to shoot would not be the chest. It's actually down into the pelvic area, because if any of those blood vessels bust, you're done. So that area has so much blood-rich organs there. That's the organs you want to wring out. And that's essentially what yoga does. It twists and contorts and wrings out the organs. It squeezes your pancreas and it allows those stagnant blood vessels, the tiny ones, the microcapillaries, the smallest blood vessels that don't get the oxygen and the nitric oxide that it's supposed to get. It allows them to remove those toxins so that exchange can occur. The exchange, it's almost like we're cutting that exchange short. And we want to make sure that the tiny blood vessels are getting it. That's why we have so many issues with, I'm seeing a rise in like Raynaud's disease now. People having severe constriction of their microcapillaries. So they'll get blue fingers, blue toes. Dementia and Alzheimer's is also interconnected with it, but that's also, connected with issues with metal toxicity. And you had mentioned metal toxicity is also one of those primary issues, because that plays an important constituent, which is where you'll find the same metals are molecularly structured very similar to aluminum, such as the ones we get in our deodorants, which contains either aluminum zirconium hydroxide or aluminum chlorohydrate. Those chemicals, when they block up the lymphatic system, they're now looking for some place to go, because our bodies is constantly trying to push it out, and then we're putting it on every single day. And as it's pushing it out, you'll ever see that someone with a yellow stain under the t-shirt, usually it's man, we got a yellow stain. That yellow stain has nothing to do with our funk, has everything to do with aluminum. That is aluminum that your body's trying to force out. But the nanoparticles of the aluminum ends up blocking up the lymphatic system. And that's where the problem occurs. After a good portion of detoxification of the liver, what you'll find is that your liver will break down mercury, lead, and all these different metals if it's optimal. But no one has an optimal liver, not living in the United States. So we have these half optimal livers where your liver's like, look, I can't focus on this mercury and these nanoparticles right now. I'm gonna push it off and leave it in the blood. Hopefully the lymphatic system picks it up. Your lymphatic system says, well, look, I can't recycle dead cells and fight off infection at the same time. I'm gonna have to hire out for help. There comes some new bad bacteria that starts jumping into play. And this is how every system supports the next, but each person or each organ system keeps pushing the job onto someone else. And, aluminum is a big problem, going back to aluminum, because aluminum is contributing to that miscommunication with the brain and hormones. Okay. So if the brain is misreading the hormones, then it's not going to produce what it needs. And there you have an imbalance in the emotional state. Because now if there's too much aluminum, there's not enough estrogen. There's not enough estrogen. There's not enough testosterone. And now we're looking at a testosterone issue. And if you don't have any testosterone, and women need testosterone too, let's not get the game confused. You guys need testosterone. That's how the brain functions. You feel good when you got lots of testosterone. As a matter of fact, you as women, you guys respond to testosterone even better because you have so many other receptors. So I've had different formulas that I would give to people that helps to stimulate and allows the brain to kind of bypass what it's false estrogen readings to go straight into real estrogen readings. So it'll open up how the pituitary would read like free testosterone. And next thing you know, you guys are like pulling trees out of the ground, flipping out cars. This is incredible. You're getting through the day. Nothing bothers you. You're like, okay, said this. I don't care. Whatever. I'm going to keep going. That's essentially how we should function. We deal with the issue, we confront it, we end it, and then we move on, and we don't even hold on to it. That's how we're built. And sadly, they've been giving us everything that we need to not be able to handle, what we're running up against. So
You said something really interesting. You said we don't have really healthy livers in America anymore.
no,
And when they tested the umbilical cords of newborn babies, they found that more than 98%, almost 99% of those umbilical cords were toxic in this country. And it didn't matter how you ate. It didn't matter if you had the healthiest diet going. This is what they found out.
that's right.
That's a sad reality.
Scary.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you live here, we're living in a cesspool of toxicity.
Yeah.
And when you really start looking at how, again, I think we talked about how different like glyphosate will bioaccumulate up the ladder, dioxin bioaccumulates up the ladder. The only way for us to remove it, as a man, I'm pretty much stuck with it unless I am like detoxing quarterly and I'm eating super ultra clean. And even when I'm trying to eat clean, I'm still missing out.
Yeah.
So eating a perfect diet, like for example, if I go vegan and I'm eating raw fruits and vegetables all day, every day, and it fits my genetic blueprint, I'm still going to have issues and imbalances. Why? Because what was done to this soil will displace certain key
Right.
elements that we're supposed to have. For example, when you put glyphosate in the soil, it displaces something called sodium tetraborate. It's gone. You don't have it anymore, which is something we need to have in our body. We need to get certain levels of boron because those are anti-inflammatory. If you start looking into history, you'll find out that somebody had discovered that, I think, in the 30s. And then I think it was Bayer ended up suing him and shutting him down. But that's a whole nother story.
Really?
We want to make sure
Yeah.
that we're getting these chemicals, these supplements into our system. And the real trap is that when you start looking at these different chemicals like sodium tetraborate and you start comparing it to what they want to compare it to, you find out that they market that as something that's toxic, when in reality, if you look at the material safety data sheet, you'll find that table salt is more toxic than sodium tetraborate, which doesn't make any sense. So, we're being fooled on a grand scale as to what works for our bodies, and trying to just go off of the food just isn't enough anymore because of what's been done. We have to really look at the environment, which is why I study environmental toxicity as well, because that plays a huge role in it. If the person's environment where we're at isn't healthy, if you're living in a house and those reader meters on the outside, if your head is next to a electrical socket that's on the outside with the reader meter, you have a direct line of electromagnetic frequencies that will ruin your sleep. You will not get good sleep. And depending on how your body chooses to express it. So that's actually one of the questions I ask in my health appraisal. Do you have a reader meter? Are you exposed to electromagnetic frequencies? Where's your Wi-Fi box? Do you sleep with your cell phone next to your nightstand? All these things play a huge factor in how your body is going to be able to rest and recover. So there's again, it's definitely holistic, but it's supposed to reach really way out there for us to really figure out how to keep everyone balanced.
Well, it's even with growing food now because I did all of these sunflowers. I grew these organic sunflowers to clean the soil because it'll pull chemicals out. But even with that, and then adding organic soil, last year I added this organic soil. It's supposed to be just pure organic soil. And out of the blue, I ended up with all of these bugs and these ants that just ate up the vegetables. And that's the first time that's ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't understand why. And I'm thinking to myself, where did this soil come from? But I remember viewing Amish farms in Pennsylvania. I went to look at them, actually, because I wanted to see how they grew food and everything. I spent the week out there. And every day that I was out there, the Amish farm was here, and on the other side of the highway was the commercial farm. I would watch, I call them crop dusters. The crop
Mm-hmm.
dusters that were spraying the commercial farm, I'd watch them swoop down to spray the farm, and the wind blowing the chemicals over here. So we have to ask ourselves, do we really have organic food anymore? What do we
Right.
have? What are we actually eating? And it's funny you should talk about boron because Samaya and I have had Dr. Judy Mikovits on the show before, and she talked about using borax to wash all of your food in. She said we should wash our food in
Mm-hmm.
borax. We should soak it in borax, wash it in borax, even if you can't get organic foods. As she said, even with the organic vegetables, we need to wash them because our environment is inundated with toxicity.
Hmm. Yes, yes, I agree with that. Using borax or boric acid to wash and clean your foods, that's going to help you get a much deeper cleanse. There's just going to only be certain fruits that I would say don't even bother. It's not going to work, like strawberries. It's
Yeah,
embedded so deep into the strawberry. It's
right.
not going to work. Apples, I would still skin the apple just
Mhm.
because of what the sealing process, because they spray it, they put the metals on, and then they seal it in that nice, pretty, shiny coat. And when that happens, it allows it to get into the apple too. But for the most part, the rest of the fruits, that tetraborate is definitely the way to go. You're going to see a lot of really good results from it. And essentially, our vegetable fruits and vegetables are supposed to actually already have it built in. It's part of its chemical makeup. We don't have it like that anymore because of all the toxins in the soil. It's not in the soil for these plants to actually draw from. The only time you're going to find it in abundance is if you're growing something that has like a really large root, something like burdock root, because it's digging so deep into the soil, it's getting slightly past that top layer. So it's able to kind of pull, some of those nutrients that may be further in. Golden seal. The reason why everyone was sweating golden seal, the root's like 30 feet long. If you let it grow the length of time that it's supposed to grow, it will reach into the deepest layers. And sadly, we started to over harvest it. And in over harvesting it, it lost its potency. It's lost its ability to have a wonderful effect for us. So yeah, that definitely would, especially when you said using sunflowers to help draw out the toxins.
Mhm.
It's, I think, and what may have contributed to the ants, coming onto that area is we've messed up so much soil. You probably had the only good soil, and every ant on that part of the planet haven't been to Dr. Sheila's. Go over there because they got really good soil and really good plants. And
That's
they
what my
all,
husband told me. He said, you had that problem before.
yeah, yeah, they probably all moved in because they don't have any place to go either. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
ruined the entire ecosystem. The balance is all messed up. So they're trying to survive too. And you got the good stuff. You drew
No,
up
I
all
had
the toxins.
calculus. I
This
had
is
stuff
good.
I hadn't seen in years.
Oh, yeah, the
Every bug
earthworms
came
were there.
up.
Everybody was moving in.
But I will say this year, I just left a lot of stuff out there. And I thought that we had a freeze. So I
Mhm.
thought, okay, the parsley's gonna die, everything's gonna die. And when I looked at it, here it was all iced over, all wilted down. It's come back so beautiful. So this year has made a difference from doing all that sunflower, all those sunflowers,
Mhm.
and letting the bugs eat up everything last year. I got a lot of stuff out there this year.
Nice, beautiful, beautiful. Awesome.
Wow, so that's wonderful. So I guess we're running out of time over here too, but you have to come back, right? You
Yes,
you will
definitely.
you got to come back. Like, because there's so many things that we can talk about um on this topic
And
that yeah, we,
Maya
we
and
have
I are
to
personally in a healing journey
we are
for not just ourselves, but for extended family members. So this is
yes,
dear to our hearts.
it is. It is. And so thank you for coming and thank you for being here with us.
Yes.
We're going to do this again. And audience, we are so sorry that we have been
It's
away
been
for
so
so
long.
long. We didn't forget you, and we're back. So thank you. And thank you for watching Moving Mountains.